Hello, everybody, and good afternoon on this fine sunny day. Welcome to the second of our webinars this week as part of Mental Health Awareness Week, looking at webinars that might help with organisation or individual resilience and sustainability, but also hopefully giving some top tips on appropriate topics to help people help those that are in their care, shall we say, and look after themselves. I'm really delighted to have Jamie Wells with us today, who's presenting, as well as Lynn. Lynn, I'm not sure if Lynn can see us as a non-presenter at the moment. I'm trying to get the permission sorted out. Lynn is also available, and we'll get her in as soon as I can. But Jamie's going to start us off. Jamie, I'll leave you to introduce yourself and your organisations, and also perhaps if you can, once I get Lynn in, we can get Lynn involved as well. There is a Q&A function on the webinar. We'll take the questions at the end. The aim is really to try and spend about half of our time, maybe a little bit more than half the time, on the presentation, and then plenty of time at the end for questions, so that we can make the most out of and make sure people get some of the answers, hopefully, that the presentation stimulates. So please post your questions there and we'll get those at the end. So without further ado, Jamie, thank you again for supporting, and to Lynn as well for supporting today. I'll pass over to you. And it's gone quiet. It's never a good sign. So for those who weren't on the presentation yesterday, on digital, we had a digital glitch, and it looks like I'm having the same problem. Jamie, can you hear me? No. I'm going to try and call Jamie back in. Brilliant.
Sorry about that. I had a weird power outage there. We are all good now. I do apologize. My sincerest, Martin, sorry about that, my friend. But we're going to start doing this. Bear with me 2 seconds here. Sorry, Martin, 2 seconds. Beautiful. Can you see that, Martin? Sorry, you're on mute right now.
Sorry, yeah, I've got an slide on instructions and Menti QR code.
Beautiful. Friends, for everyone that is listening, we're going to do a little bit of Menti right here, and this is just something that you're able to follow along. So if you would be able to, in your devices, just quickly take care of just kind of adding this in more than anything, if that's okay. So you're either going to you're going to scan the QR code, or you are going to actually put in the menti.com on your phone and then just entering that code in as we go. We'll do a quick explanation on who I am and what I do. So my name is Jamie Wells. I am one of the project officers for the Scottish Gambling Education Hub. We go around and talk to young people, old people, everything in between, and talk to them about harm reduction advice, information about gambling, gaming, all that kind of lovely little stuff. We're going to show you a little bit behind the curtain. We are going to show you a little bit about the hidden secrets of gambling, talk a little bit about it, harm reduction advice, all that kind of stuff as well, more than anything. If you are not able to join on right now, I'm going to switch the slide, as I know that we are a little bit time tight, but we are going to just kind of go into it. If you are unable to log in right now, the menti.com and the code will be up at the top of the screen itself kind of thing like that as well. If you would be able to, just right now, this is more for me more than anything. I'm going to lower this so I don't see myself. Would you be able just to kind of do a strongly disagree or a strongly agree about things that you may already know about gambling? If you could, you'll be able to do it on your phone, no problem. And I'll just wait a few secs. Beautiful, thank you. Also, do keep in mind, we'll mention a few things while I'm just waiting for the last two people. I do not believe in abstinence. So we tell this to every single person that we do talk about. I believe that there are people that can game and gamble with no problems whatsoever. So that is not what we're going to be talking about today. We're currently going to be talking about, again, the signs of harm that might be experienced through gambling and gaming, the connections of gaming to gambling. But our biggest thing is that I never want to say no. I just want to be able to give you the alternative to be able to get yourself out of any harm experience. The other thing is, friends, that if I might bring up a few sensitive subjects, if at any point, my friends, you do not feel comfortable, it makes you feel a little bit weird, we feel a little bit triggered, friends, by all means, just turn yourself off, turn the camera off, mute me if you want to, and we will be able to just move on from it. And again, if there are any issues, do you have any problems, anything like that, friends, please feel free to reach out to Martin, myself, anything like that as well. Do keep in mind as well that my colleague from RCA Trust, Lynn, was the person that was supposed to be running this lovely presentation. But I am very adequate in taking over, but there might be some skipping of slides. Please forgive me if that does happen, but we are just going to move on right now, my friends. So this is literally what I was talking about. So hidden in plain sight. We refer to it as hidden in plain sight because of the fact that unlike drinking, unlike drugs, unlike smoking and other harms that are experienced, we can see those physical changes and we can see the physical presence of those harms upon a person. Why we say hidden in plain sight is that we know through studies and facts to back us up that you experience just as much detrimental mental health and you can experience the same detrimental physical health from gambling, but it could be done something within a hidden situation, such as on your phone and everything like that as well. So that's the point that we just want to be able to make. So for today's session, we're going to go over this as quick as we can, friends. But again, there'll be questions to go after, everything like that. Martin, I know you're listening to me right now. If you feel like I'm running over a little bit, please step in. Let me know. That's more than okay. I've shut everything down, so I can't really see anyone at the moment. But we will go ahead. So I want to talk a little bit about how gambling works. We're going to talk a little bit about online gambling and gaming. We're going to talk about gambling harms, gambling disorder, gambling is a public health issue, more in depth on gambling and veterans and affected others and risk factors, as well as gambling education, harm reduction, and additional support. I should say Martin has set up the Q&A within the actual questions themselves. So friends, feel free to put in a question at any time in the chat. I can't see it right now, but we will answer it at the end and everything like that as well. So friends, we're just going to quickly talk about what we mean by gambling, as I'm sure you already know, but it's always nice to get a little bit of a understanding of what I am talking about. So gambling is risking money or something of material value on something with an uncertain outcome in the hope of winning additional money or prize. Friends, I know we all know that gambling is risking money in order to win more money, but the reason that I put something of material value on something with a certain outcome or in the hopes of winning a prize is that we also go in to talk to prisons. We talk to people that may not have a lot of pocket money. We talk to young people, all this kind of stuff. And what we want you to be well aware of is that someone gambling their last 20 quid could just be as important as someone gambling a pot noodle, their last pot noodle, their last body spray, deodorant, hair gel, kind of stuff like that as well. And when we start to talk about loot boxes and microtransactions and all these lovely little kind of things, you will see how that is a form of gambling. It is not necessarily maybe risking actual cash, but something that we would be able to do in order of winning that additional money or prize. So friends, I'm just going to quickly talk about the gambling industry as a profitable commercial enterprise. So the house edge. What I mean by the house edge quite simply enough, you'll see that roulette wheel just down there at the bottom left. The house edge itself, in a roulette wheel, you have about 37 numbers. If you were to go to a physical casino or a casino located on your phone, a lot of times that those numbers will also have a single, a double, a triple, a quadruple zero. And if those hit on those numbers, then the house wins itself. It gives it that house pushover. The other thing that we do tend to talk about as well, again, within casinos, is that if you match the numbers, say with blackjack or poker, anything like that, again, the actual house, the casino will win. When we are talking about online gambling, we're talking about the actual chances in which you will be able to win, odds, all these kind of lovely things that they'll be able to do, which then brings us on to law of averages and maybe focus more upon things such as your pogies, your fruit machines, all these kind of stuff located within pubs. So law of averages, if we were to go back to the fruit machine itself, very simply put, is let's even do it. I drove my car today to come to the office. I hit red light the entire time. My law of averages is that because I've only hit red lights, inevitably I have to hit a green light. Same idea goes with people who are experiencing harm from gambling, in which they will be on a fruit machine, and their idea is that as long as I wait here, keep spending my money, my numbers are going to come up. I need you to be well aware of that. I've managed pubs. I've talked to people who have owned fruit machines. This law of averages is a pseudoscience. I program what the win outcome is. Same with the owner of the actual fruit machine, which again comes to that house edge. That the house edge meaning that the person that owns that actual enterprise, the online gambling, anything like that, has that edge on you, and law of averages does not work. A little bit of a scary number. We don't have the number for 25 yet, but the UK industry revenue for 23 to 24 is 15.6 billion pounds, which is absolutely insane and ridiculous. And that 4.7% of gamblers generate 60% of profits. If we were to take the CEO of Bet365, who is a lovely lady named Denise Coates, last year, or I guess last April, the Scandinavian countries have a bit more of a protection around gambling harm experience, especially around young people. Bet365 and Denise Coates had to pay a fine to 4 families whose young people aren't here with us anymore due to harm experience from gambling, and she had to pay 75 million in fines. I think we can all agree that these people would much rather have their loved ones with them than to actually have that money, but it was still something, a fine that she had to pay out and everything like that. I think we can all agree that if you saw me a month from now and you read that something from my direct work caused the harm or the life of someone that I was supporting, I don't think that we would be getting the amount of money that she actually gets paid, which is about 250 million pounds, which includes a bonus of about 175 million pounds. We were also to look at that number of 4.7% of gamblers generate 60% of profits. Friends, if we replace that with Henson and Bedges, if we replace that with Smirnoff vodka, friends, I think that would be quite a devastating and scary situation if we were to watch that 4.7% of those people generate the 60% of profits, but we still look at them and we still hound them and we still go on them and everything like that as well. Friends, we're going to just play a little bit of a game. I hope that we're all still with me and everything like that. It's just going to be called What Are the Odds? And it's just a little bit of a guessing game itself. I'll give you a few moments just to kind of get ready if you want to. If there's more than one player that will join. If not, we can skip through, friends. That's more than okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, friends. So I'm just going to do a few questions here just to kind of cut up the monotony a bit, and we're just going to be able to go ahead. So it's literally just a simple guessing game itself, friends. So what are the odds of rolling a double 6 with 2 dice? 1 in 13, 1 in 4,096, 1 in 36, and 1 in 45. Hey, 1 in 36. Beautiful. Okay, next question, friends. Here we go. Okay, what are the odds of winning 30 quid in the national lottery? Just a bit of a hint. You only need 3 numbers, my friends. You only need 3 numbers to win the national lottery. Or 30 quid, sorry, in the national lottery. Oh, we didn't get any of that right. So 1 in 97. Now, friends, that might look a little bit low, but keep in mind, my maths are terrible, so we're going to try and do this quickly for you. If I round up to about 1 in 100 instead of 1 in 97, national lottery ticket is £2. This is what I usually say to my young people, that this is what this is telling me, is that I technically have to spend £200 to win £30. So have I won any money? The answer is no. I've technically lost about 170 pounds on average. We get a lot of people that say, well, Jamie, don't people win on the first or second try? 100% they do. The studies that we find is that money heads right back to the counter, buys another national lottery ticket, and that kind of cycle kind of goes on ahead, kind of thing like that as well. So just something it is. We're going to go, let's see what this question is here. Ooh, odds of having an accident on a UK fairground ride. At 97, hopefully not. 2 million, 11 million, 1 in 140 million. Yes, beautiful. 1 in 2 million. I shouldn't say beautiful. That is a little bit lower number than I wanted to. Next one, friends. Ooh, the odds of winning an 87 plus player from a premium gold pack in FIFA 22. Beautiful. And the last question, my friends, again, just to have a little bit of fun. Or sorry, I have two more questions. Apologies. So this one is going to be maybe a little bit morbid. Yeah, odds of dying in a plane crash. Oof, I'm testing you guys this afternoon. Apologies. So 1 in 10,000, hopefully not. 1 in 6 million, 1 in 11 million, 1 in 140 million. Nope. 1 in 11 million. I'm glad that's higher than 1 in 6 million. And then the last question, my friends. The odds of winning the national lottery jackpot. This is winning the whole thing. Oof. There we go. 1 in 45 million. I thought it was 1 in 140 million as well. 1 in 45 million is still quite huge. Friends, what we are talking about, and the reason that we brought this up is obviously we're talking about safeguarding. We're talking about understanding our harms. We're talking about all that kind of stuff. So if we look at the 2 harmed questions, if we look at the odds of having an accident on a UK fairground ride and the odds of dying in a plane crash are more likely than winning that national lottery jackpot. Now, that's not to scare anyone, but that's more to say that if we were to rock up to a UK Ferris wheel and we saw some loose, rusty nuts and bolts, maybe we saw a fire down at the bottom, maybe we saw about 12 empty tins of Tennants, we would all look at each other and we'd be like, yo, maybe we shouldn't be getting on this ride. Same thing with my friends. I don't know the last time that you've gone to one of our small airports here. I live in Edinburgh. If I have to go down to London, I usually have to show up about 2 hours early to get through security, all that kind of stuff, because I understand about protecting myself and safeguarding also my fellow passengers and everything like that as well. That is kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about harm reduction advice and the national lottery and all the kind of gambling and everything like that, is that we are talking about the fact that, yes, it's okay to play the national lottery, but maybe we do not spend our rent money on it. Maybe we don't stay up till 3 a.m. doing it, all that kind of stuff as well. Just those small little adjustments is all that we kind of need to be able to do. Let's see who won here. Hey, I think it's a 4-way tie. Awesome. Wonderful, friends. Beautiful. Okay, if I could have a few moments from you, just on your screen itself, it'll allow you to be able to type in maybe a couple words, maybe a sentence or anything like that. If I could just have you guys just put in for me, why do people still gamble? Chasing a big win. Yeah, well put. 100%. Fun. The prize. 100%. Gambling is fun. Winning money, winning that prize is fun. 100%. Excitement, addiction, money worries, a quick fix. Well put, friends. Thank you for putting that in. Thank you. Okay, so the common fallacies are it's normalizing behavior and that often confusing often with memorable. So this is very important, especially when we talk to maybe younger people, maybe people whose grandparents used to gamble, anything like that as well. And we often hear that my grandpa won huge and he won 70,000 on the horses or national lottery, or we had a young person that did won 25,000 on the football accumulator, all that kind of stuff as well. But especially if we look into the grandpa thing or anything like that, all that we tend to do is that we have to pick away a little bit, and we find that grandpa won that 75,000 pounds on the national lottery in 1982 and has not stopped gambling since. So things where it's like the often win is maybe more of the memorable win, and how much more has he lost because of that kind of stuff like that. And especially with that, with the early wins and occasional rewards encouraging false hopes. They do this a lot on a Bet365, on a DAFA bet, on a 32 red, all this kind of stuff, where you will not only get that acceptance into if you put 10 quid in, we'll give you 10 quid, but there is a very good chance that on those first, second, third, maybe even fourth bets, you win huge, creating that false hope to be able to spend that more. Keep in mind also that you cannot create an account on your phone. It's very uncommon to be able to create an account within the bookies without a credit card connected to it. So then you'll think that all I have to do is just be able to get that win, getting that more money, all that kind of stuff as well. And again, superstitions and illusion of control. Friends, we're talking about, remember before, with the loss aversion, we're talking about the law of averages, where all I have to do is just keep playing and I'll be able to hit and everything like that as well. And this is where we start to move on to that hidden addiction and more onto the fallacy of the fact that the bookies, the pubs, all that kind of stuff are where we're able to gamble. So you see how it used to be before down the bottom, where it'd have to be a physical spot, where it would have to be bookies, a pub, a casino, which we all know is slightly controlled. So you are being observed, in which people tend to not gamble as much when they are within public or feel like they're being observed itself. Also closing hours. Also with that ease of pay, a lot of it was cash that you were able to hold and know how much you were spending, how much you were losing, all that kind of stuff as well. We then moved into more of an online gambling situation, but still back then we had limits on how much internet you were able to have, the connection of. I'm sure I'm still speaking some people who are millennials who can remember the dial-up internet where there was still that limitation. Also keep in mind that it would have been a family computer, it would have been a physical spot you had to go, all that kind of stuff, to now moving to online gaming, in which it is accessed 24/7. You could do it from your bed, toilet, bus, everything in between. We have now made it accessible for everything and all that kind of stuff. Bringing in those addictive characteristics in the gambling products, such as high speed, at high event frequency, repetitive, chance-based, like I had mentioned, friends, those 24-hour availability, losses disguised as wins, and near misses. We will get this a lot, especially when we start to talk a little bit about gaming, where it'll pop in and be like, oh my word, you were so close. That national lottery, you were down one number. That football bet you made, the accumulator you put on, man, you literally were just one goal down and you would have been able to do it. It could be even so much as in an actual casino itself, where, hey, literally all we have to do is just be able to hit that number. You were so close. Remember when you put the number on 12 red and it happened to be 12 black? It's going to be 12 red next time. Those near misses, getting you to spend that money, getting you to not leave those situations more than anything like that. Friends, could I just have a quick moment of your time, and could you have a look at the screen right now and just kind of guess for me which ones of these happen to be gambling games? Beautiful. So I think we can all agree, obviously, who wants to be a millionaire? Friends, not only do we know that this is a pub quiz kind of setup question, but obviously we have seen this in certain fruit machines and arcades and stuff like that. We know that's a gambling game. I will let you all know, and some of you did not fall into my trap, that these are all gambling games. I think that we can kind of agree that with Underground Apocalypse, Sweet Alchemy, Return of Kong, Legend of the Sword, I think we cannot deny, friends, who the audience is, who this is aimed at. And we are now talking about the fact that gambling companies are playing on these images to try and entice younger people into being able to gamble and stuff like that as well. So this is something that I just wanted you to be aware of, everything like this. Friends, we had Taylor Swift come and join us at Murrayfield last summer. The queue that was outside to try and get her merchandise was there since I think that Monday, even though she was playing on like a Friday. I have an electronic billboard that's right by the tram stop. They had gambling adverts aimed at that queue for people buying merchandise from Monday morning until Sunday evening. The amount of money, the amount of research, the amount of ad space that they had to figure out how to do that is astonishing. It's amazing. You have to give it to them to be able to do it. These people hire psychiatrists, social workers, ex-teachers, all this kind of stuff. Money talks to be able to get that addictive personality in. And friends, that's who we're battling against, that multi-billion organizations to be able to keep these addictions going and everything like that as well. Social casinos are something that we have seen within Apple Store, Google Play, all that kind of stuff, which are free to play gambling like games found on social networking sites. These, friends, are the exact same as actual casinos and the ones that you can actually put money on. The biggest difference is that these are free and that there are no age restrictions. So anyone can play for any amount of time and everything like that. Biggest thing about this is obviously entices young people to go in, but the biggest one is that you are more likely to win in these games than you are if you were to actually put money in, which then gives that fallacy of if I actually put the credit card down and actually go onto an actual casino online, I did so well in the social casino, inevitably I should do well when it's actually money. I'm paying money and I'm spending money. Friends, we both know that's a fallacy. And that is something that we don't do at all. I'm going to skip over this, friends, just because we are a short little bit of time. We're going to have a quick talk about loot boxes, just in case there are so many parents or anything like that, or people that do want to know. So loot boxes are a video game feature involving a sealed mystery box, sometimes earned through playing the game, and sometimes played for with real money, which could be open for random collection of in-game items such as weapons or cosmetic games, or costumes, right? Friends, if we can remember back to my first slide about what gambling is, in which I said it was risking money in the hopes of winning money, but also risking money on an uncertain outcome in the hopes of winning additional money or prize. With loot boxes, which are like video game purchases, again, that you can buy weapons and costumes and everything like that as well, is that you are using either time or in-game currency to purchase these. Friends, it is a complete guess in the hopes of winning something, and it brings in that dopamine hit. It brings in that addictive personality, so that easy connection to, oh, I remember something similar to this when I'm old enough to be able to gamble. But also for people my age that play these games, it is a slippery slope to start putting money onto actual loot boxes, not being able to track your spending, dopamine hit, all these kind of lovely little things. Exactly what I'm saying. Play with in-game or real currency, that randomized item reward. The outcome is unknown based on chance. Obviously, it has that gambling style mechanics itself. So why are we talking about gaming and why are we talking about gambling? And it's very simple, friends. It's because that psychological and product design similarities I had mentioned, dopamine hit, unable to track your spending, but also those losses disguised as wins. Yo, if you were playing that fruit game that you were so having such a good time with, some gems and anything like that. Yo, you're on the 97th level. You've just spent 17 hours doing it. You can't get through, but if you spend $7.99 now, we will give you the ability to be able to pass through that level. Won't that be a lovely dopamine hit? The people you'll be able to tell, all that kind of stuff. And that's where we get those similar risks and harms associated with those addictive characteristics. Doing it now, dopamine hit. And people who gamble are more likely to be gamers and vice versa. Leads us to a few industry tricks of the actual gaming. So the use of in-game currency, which is the same idea that we use for online gambling, where you don't necessarily are holding the cash within your hand. You are only seeing it through the actual app, It gives that fallacy in your head that I'm not actually spending my money, I'm spending something within the game's currency, when in actual fact, it's your credit card connected to it. The loss aversion. Loss aversion is the exact same thing that we see where I would be on a Google Play game where it would be, if you spend $7.99 today, we will give you 20,000 credits for that game. It only happens today. There's no way it'll ever happen again. Same thing that they'll do with a DAFA Bet36532 Red, where they go, put your credit card down now. We will give you 20 quid, matching you 20 quid. It's only happening today. It is playing on the fallacy of you are losing money when in fact you need to spend the money to be able to get it. And it plays on that worries of you as a human, the human brain itself, going, if I do not do this now, I'm actually losing out on something. That reward removal is the same idea. Do it now. If you don't do it within 24 hours, we're going to lose this actual thing. And that entices you to spend more. So that FOMO, that fear of missing out, all that kind of stuff as well. Leads us a little bit to the gambling behavior continuum. So you'll see this is where we actually have the harm based upon actual activities that are associated with gambling. So if we look to the left, we're talking about maybe playing some Yahtzee, maybe playing a little bit of bingo, maybe a tiny little bit of gambling at a casino, maybe playing a little bit of bingo, bango, bongo, all that kind of lovely stuff. A little bit of a tombola. We're now talking more of an increased risk of harm. We're talking about online. We're talking about scratch cards. We're talking about being in casinos. We're talking about football betting, sports betting, putting your credit card connected to the actual online account, to where we're talking to gambling disorder, where we're talking about 24/7 access on your phone. We're talking about loss of relationships. We're talking about not being able to spend bills. We're talking about losing credit card. We're talking about anxiety. We're talking about depression, and which can sometimes lead, as we had mentioned before, to possible health risks, death, imprisonment, crime, all that kind of lovely stuff and everything. So gambling disorder is a pattern of gambling behavior that causes significant distress or impairment to important personal functions where the person experiences impaired control over gambling. Leading us to the gambling disorder cycle, which you'll see where it's that gambling activity, so your fast dopamine release, your habit formation, into that need to gamble more to increase negative feelings, into that constant preoccupation, cues in the environment acts as triggers. Friends, we can also put this into the triangle, into the disorder cycle, if we add in drugs and if we add in alcohol. So obviously we're looking at my lowered inhibitions. So say that I decide to drink, say that I decide to take drugs, and then someone does come to me where there is a fruit machine, or I'm at home and I decide to maybe risk a little bit of money. Maybe my finances are doing so well, my inhibitions are lowered, and maybe I might spend a little bit more money on the actual gambling than I normally would. Subsequently, if we went the other way, in which I have been experiencing financial issues, I felt like going gambling was a quick way to be able to solve it. I've lost, and so therefore to be able to battle with the depression, anxiety, feelings of loss that I have experienced, I may turn to alcohol and to drugs, and then that circle just continues and everything like that. So how to recognize a gambling disorder. So being preoccupied with gambling, needing to gamble with increasing stakes, being restless when attempting to cut down. Gambling is a way of escaping problems or depression. Chasing losses, we've mentioned that quite a few times. Lying or keeping secrets around gambling behavior. And relationship disruption, truancy, or disrupted school and work due to gambling itself. And this is where we start to talk about the spotting the signs of harm. So as we kind of look to the left, we're talking about borrowing money. In that middle there, we're talking about argument. We're now talking about losing sleep, breaking the bank, so not being able, so your account in your bank now not being accessible, or that you've lost all the money into it. Middle, we're talking about isolation. We're talking about nervousness, anxiety, depression, panic attacks. Down there at the bottom left, we've had instances of people leading to crime. In the middle, we're talking about not understanding who we are, losing all ambition, and losing the focus and personality of who we are. And then that bottom right, we're talking about escape. And that could be escape from your family, your friends, from work, or we also are talking about people who unfortunately suicide themselves due to the shame around harm from gambling, gaming, stuff like that as well. Friends, if we could take a quick moment here, and I just want to be able to see where I have a few scenarios on there, and I just want you to let me know if you think it's a low risk of harm or a high risk of harm for the scenarios that are located in front of you, please, and thank you, friends. And I'll just give you a few moments, guys. Beautiful. So I'm just going to quickly go over them, friends. I know I'm still getting a little bit tight for time, but we'll just do that quickly. So Lewis won prize of the arcades last week. He's gone back again with more money this time, hoping to win big on the slot machines. I'm glad that we put 5.2 because I totally agree that it might be a bit more of a higher risk of harm itself. We're now talking about the fact that he did go to the arcade last week. He keeps going back again, wants to spend more money, might have a hard time tracking his money, tracking the time that's actually spent on it, and the hopes, and like we've talked about, chasing those losses and everything like that as well. So well done. Jack bet his chocolate Easter egg on whether or not his friend would be able to score a penalty in their school's football match. It got marked down low, 2.0. A lot of people do this as well as that markdown 2.0. But we had a young person when I was doing Beavers who was about 5 or 6 years old, and he marked it really high. And I asked him why, and he said, well, what if that is the only thing that Jack had to eat today? Or what if that was a special thing from his grandpa who's not here anymore? Or any along those kind of things as well. And remember, I mentioned before that gambling is that risking of something on the hopes of winning additional money prize on an uncertain outcome, that this is still a form of gambling, and this might lead to a slippery slope kind of stuff like that for this young person. Again, friends, I'm playing devil's advocate to you, so I am doing that, but just to kind of open her eyes a little bit more, especially a young person sharing with that. Janice puts £2 a week on National Lottery, where she does her weekly shop, even though she is currently struggling to pay her bills. 4.2 is a normal number that we do put for that. One thing that I like to do, again, playing devil's advocate, is that we are talking about £2. We are talking about a weekly shop, and I understand she's struggling to pay her bills. But what if that is Janice's only access to her being outside of the house? Maybe that's her only access to having conversation with people within the town. Maybe she is isolated where she is, so that's a place for her to be able to get out, interact with people. Maybe this gives her a bit of routine. I always like to bring up the fact that in my small town, we have bingo every Tuesday. And what it gives a chance to is I have quite an aged population in my town, is that it gives the ability for the older people to get out, to interact. It might be, like I said, a routine for them. Bingo gets played on TV, so they recognize that people are on it. They can do a Facebook shout out. So, hey, shout out to Janice, who's playing bingo from Jamie, all that kind of stuff like as well. So this is where I'm playing that devil's advocate, where I like to let people know that we don't necessarily teach abstinence because we know that there are some benefits to being out and to being social and everything like that as well. But we do like to be able to obviously offer that other side of things. Ryan stole money out of his flatmate's purse to repay a loan he took out playing poker online, friends. I'm not going to doubt that. 6.0, 100%. We're now talking about a disruption of relationships. We're talking about crime. We're talking about losing his house, all that kind of stuff as well. Olivia put £1 in the World Cup sweepstakes as a work to raise money for a local charity. 1.4, beautiful, friends. It's the same thing whenever we work with a lot of charities who get money from the National Lottery. And when they see us coming in, they tend to have a little bit of a weird look about us. We do not ever poo-poo on anyone getting money, especially charities from the National Lottery. Again, we'll mention back to the beginning where I said, don't spend all your rent money, don't spend all your time, kind of stuff like that. Friends, I'm still pub on Friday. I'll have a pint with a friend and we'll talk about what would happen if we won the lottery, what I would do, all that kind of stuff. So friends, I get it, everything like that. Eric borrowed money from his friend to purchase several loot boxes and the hope of winning a rare item he could sell for money. Thank you for not being tricked by that, friends. That is exactly it. It is a form of gambling through gaming. We're talking about that loss aversion. We're talking about that fear of missing out, all those kind of amazing, wonderful things. So gambling disorder as a hidden addiction, and gambling is a public health issue. So friends, could you just take a few seconds for me just so I can get a bit of an idea? What are some examples of gambling harm for in your eyes and in your mind? Stealing money, beautiful. Deception, great word, thank you. Debt, of course. Financial crisis, loss of home. Wonderful, friends, thank you. Poverty, yeah. Relationship breakdowns. Well put. Thank you very much, everyone. So this is where we talk a little bit about this. So where we go with work and employment, this is our affecting of actual gambling harms themselves. So work and employment, where it has unstable employment, job loss, reduced performance. We're talking about money and debt. So debt, financial insecurity, reduced disposable income, and crime, antisocial behavior, and crimes committed. I was a social worker before I did this job. I worked with criminal justice and I worked with supporting young people. When I was in the sheriff court and the crime was non-violent, non-sexual nature, and had to usually do with either breaking and entering, minor robbery, and stuff like that. And if it had to do with paying debts associated with a drug debt, or if the break and enter, robbery, scuffle, anything like that, was an association with alcohol and still was a young person, rightfully so, I totally agree with. They would get a community payback order, so community service, and probably most likely supervision with a social worker to try and steer them down a better path, work with their addiction, kind of stuff like that as well. I have 4 or 5 young people who had done minor robberies, to stole money to be able to pay back gambling debt that they accrued, and one of them to pay back gaming debt that they had accrued. We had all 4 times those young people were given custodial sentences, so criminal sentences for it, and I didn't understand the relationship to it. It's equally the same thing that if you were to be imprisoned for, say, something to do along the lines with your addiction, and it had to do with alcohol, had to do with drugs, or had to do with tobacco, you would get help for it within your facility and within the prison system. Currently, right now, you would only be handed a phone, this guy, in your cell, which you would then have access to gambling again. Currently, in Scotland, or I guess in England, there are 16 NHS clinics that solely look after harm experienced from gambling and gaming. Currently in Scotland, there are 0. So that's something I do want to share with you. Also talks about rupture of relationships, so partners, family, and friends, community. And obviously we're talking about health, physical health, psychological distress, mental health. So reduced health, well-being, and happiness to individuals, families, communities. We're talking about physical health. We're talking about mental health, all that kind of stuff as well. So statistically, who is most at risk? So veterans are more likely than civilians to have experienced harmful gambling. So that's 1.41% of veterans compared to 0.17% of civilians. The landscape of gambling harm for UK veterans, and what does it look like? So we see more veterans, 49.9%, than non-veterans, 36.67%, have experienced a traumatic event. Veterans gambling was 7 times more likely to be motivated by a need to escape or avoid distress. Among individuals with gambling addictions, up to 34% also suffered from PTSD. And past year gambling participation was significantly more common among our veteran sample, which is 91.5%, than non-veteran sample at 71%, with veterans being 4.41 times more likely to gamble, as I had mentioned before. I'm just going to quickly play this video. I hope that we can be able to hear it. If not, please let me know. I will be able to.
I'm not sure we can hear it, Jamie.
You can't hear it?
No.
Okay. It's in the words are the same as that are being written. So if you could just read along with the words, that would be more than okay.
Okay.
Beautiful. And I know we couldn't hear most of that, friends, but I am going to be able to share that with Martin and everything like that as well. So we'll be able
Yeah.
to send those along for you.
Thanks, Jim.
But
If you
you're
could
right,
share us the link, that'd be really helpful. We can put
100,
that alongside.
100%.
Thanks.
So just to really, so boys and men are more likely to girls to be experienced problem gambling. And then gambling harm is a form of health inequality and affects the health and well-being of specific population of groups more than others. We can see that living in a deprived area, unemployment, poor mental health, substance use, low education attainment, and being from a Black, Asian, minority ethnic community. I'll skip over that quickly. So we're going to quickly just talk about affected others as well, and then I will be moving on, keeping an eye on my time, I swear. So on average, 6 people are more affected by one person's harmful gambling. So what we mean by that is that you do not need to do the actual gambling or gaming to experience the actual harm from it. So that 93% of family members reported their financial security was impacted. 4 out of 5 reported they spent less time socializing. Half of family members were absent from work or study. 99% reported harm to their health. 1 in 6 committed acts of self-harm, and 8% attempted suicide themselves. Currently, right now, as I'm sure you're well aware, as I mentioned before, there are no actual NHS clinics that focus upon any harm experienced from gambling and gaming, which is located here. There is 0 in all of the UK that have a focus upon families who are an affected other experiencing harmful gambling. And we are very sure that they not only are left out, but are also experiencing detrimental mental health, physical health, all this kind of stuff as well, more than anything. So we'll talk a little bit about harm reduction. Friends, this is not a this isn't a crazy thing itself. It's very, very simple. You'll see that if we just eliminate one of those moments or watch or are able to control one of these actual moments themselves, then we can reduce a little bit of our actual gambling harm more than anything itself. So I always like to say I'm a big Canadian. I'm an ice hockey fan. Friends that I watch my team play at 5 in the morning and spent my rent money on it. Of course not. I wanted to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to be able to make sure that I was able to give this delivery to you. And that's just the point of it. We watch our access, our money, our time, just to try to be able to eliminate a bit of it. We also talk a little bit about our trigger question, which is included in an assessment. This is what we do when we actually direct you to actual professional help. So a professional thinks this young person or a new person may be impacted by gambling. And gambling harm is already flagged. But it's that simple thing where we like to ask her that trigger question: as gambling or gambling of someone close to you have a negative effect on your life? We tend to find out that a lot of people, like I said, with it being a hidden harm and a hidden addiction, that we don't tend to actually talk about it. So a lot of the times just bringing up that question, having maybe even focusing yourself, maybe asking a young person, your partner, yourself, or anything like that. Am I having trouble with gambling? Am I having a trouble spending and tracking my money? Am I having a hard time looking at the time, the access to it, all that kind of stuff as well. I'm just going to quickly skip over this. It's just going to be a harm reduction advice, friends. Again, like I had mentioned, I do not have a golden ticket, but this is just something that we do and we send to everyone, regardless of age, government, GPs, everything in between. And so it's just these little things where we like to stick to your budget rigorously, where we set a time limit. We don't gamble to cope with negative emotions. We never chase our losses. And we know that gambling is designed to take your money and to keep you playing. We have many, many, many stories, many articles, many films, many firsthand accounts of people who have experienced detrimental harm from their gambling and their gaming addiction, have canceled everything that it is, and have tried to stop what they can, and they still get emails, they still get alerts, they still get all this kind of stuff. Currently, right now, we are trying to fix it, where if you want to stop your gambling, address any of the harm that you are experiencing, it is self-afflicted, meaning that I would need to go onto an actual site and put a blocker on it so that I don't actually gamble. Friends, to be able, I think we can admit that if you yourself are experiencing harm from an addiction, the fact that you would then have to be able to know, or the place that's giving you that harm are the ones that look after your well-being, is absolutely ridiculous. Friends, if we were to switch that to alcohol, Mr. Smirnoff telling you that you've had enough vodka to drink, or your Coke dealer letting you know that they'll look after your well-being, and they'll let you know when you've had enough drugs and everything like that. Friends, it's that same concept, same idea. I think we can admit those last two things are ridiculous. So why are we still allowing gambling companies to do this, to do these to yourselves and stuff like that as well? Friends, again, Martin, I'm going to pass this on to you. It will be shared, friends, but obviously this is our signposting. So we obviously have the National Gambling Helpline. We do have GamCare in Scotland, and we have Gamblers Anonymous Helpline. You do not need any GP or professional to be able to have you directed to these. These are all helplines that you can call. Currently, we only have physical one-to-one, which is RCA Trust, which is my colleague that was supposed to be here, which we will pass that information over to. And they have that one-to-one access. Currently, that's only in Paisley, so Edinburgh and Glasgow don't have it yet. So we're, again, trying to spread that word like we are doing today and everything along those lines. We're talking about other support with RCA Trust, Bet No More, GamFam, GamBan, and GamStop. Again, these will be all shared to you. And also, we're also talking about ActVet, which is modules based on acceptance and commitment therapy. So 6 structured modules based on the 6 core components of ACT, which is guided breathing exercises, progressive content, brief module, push notifications, self-paced use after 4 weeks, all these lovely little things. Again, they will be shared with you and easy accessible and stuff that we found that worked with other veterans that we have supported and everything like that as well. We did it. Friends, we're going to do questions in a little bit. I'm going to send that survey to you, Martin, if you wouldn't mind sending it away as well. That'd be absolutely brilliant. You did so well, friends. I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to stop sharing.
That's great.
Whew.
Jamie, thank you very much for that and for the getting through so much information in the time available. We have got some comments and questions before I sum up, if we may. I've got one here from Janet talking about the need. We need to treat food and alcohol and gambling advertising like we manage the harms of smoking. They all need health warning and banned advertising to safeguard vulnerable in society, which I think we can all agree with.
100%. Janet, sorry, I'm going to quickly mention that. So we like to talked about sports betting. I talked about football betting, and especially the fact that they play on the addictive personalities of the Scottish people. So if we were to look at, there's about 9-ish teams, maybe even a bit more, that still have the gambling ads located on their actual front of their jersey. We see in one game, if we were to take like an Old Firm derby, you see about 3,000 gambling ads in one game. You see 6 times more ads in those gambling and in that game itself than you do in any other derby and any other sport in the world. Friends, if we were to look back just a few years ago where they had alcohol, if we look back just a few years before that, we have tobacco. We think that's ridiculous. Friends, we need to have that same attitude, as Janet was saying, as we do for actual gambling. So thank you very much for putting that in.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that answers one of the questions later on, perhaps. Because I'd mentioned the future. There's a planned ban on future football clubs having advertising, and would that reduce harm? Let's hope so. I think is the key thing. I had my own. If I suspect a colleague's has a gambling issue, what's the best question to engage that individual with in order to elicit engagement rather than them just being really defensive?
Very well put. That's a hard question. But I think that the reason it's a hard question is because it's to be a hard conversation to have. What I say to social workers, what I say to GPs, what I say to government officials, is the same thing that I would say if we were to talk about suicide training and stuff like that, is that we don't currently think that it's harm and that we currently don't even just ask the question. So what we need to do is start having that open dialogue, that open conversation with that person that we'd be worried about, and to let them know that it is a harm, that it is on that same level that we do with drug addiction, alcohol, tobacco, and that we're genuinely concerned about their well-being. Is there any way that we'd be able to support them? I think the biggest thing that we tend to not do is that we do not think, like I said, that it is something that is detrimental, that it is a serious thing, that it can lead to others, but it's also in that trifecta of harm that we tend to not even just initiate that question. So even within social work's assessment, we started to change it where they would ask, do you have any past addictions towards alcohol, towards drugs? But they would never ask that third one, and that's what we're trying to do. So even just being here and having that conversation is a huge step forward in how we could be able to address that with the person we love.
No, that's helpful. Thanks, Jamie. Janet's also commented. I'm gonna thank you as well. I think Janet's further comment about it wasn't until we legislated in Scotland against for minimum alcohol pricing and smoking, etc., that the levels of harm or participation in it and therefore harm longer term are reducing. So I think you're right. We need to raise the profile of this, and I have meetings with I'll be meeting Sacro, and there's another charity just coming up shortly to Scotland. Can't remember their name. Working in the criminal justice system, so I'll have a chat with them about that as well.
One of our biggest things is that before now, we're trying to change it, and it is moving over, was that it was a voluntary levy by the gambling companies. So unlike your drug companies and your alcohol and tobacco companies that had a fixed levy that they had to pay to battle against the harm that they've created, it was a voluntary levy. So companies such as like your Bet365, your 32 Red, your Paddy Power, everything like that, some of them were only paying about £1, £2, £3 to be able to battle the harm that they're doing. I'm okay that it's there. I'm okay that people gamble. I'm okay that people game. But what we also need is the same thing for drug, alcohol, tobacco, is that we need protection, we need harm reduction advice, and we need professionals to be able to support those that tend to go down that dark alleyway. And that's all that I want.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And I guess I'm partly feeling guilty because as somebody who's run my local rugby club and done quite a lot of fundraising and things through tombolas. So when I do fundraising, it tends to be race nights from tombolas and sweepstakes on rugby matches on who's going to score the first try, last try. So I'm probably not helping the situation. So I'm feeling a wee bit.
Martin, it's just having those conversations and the understanding of, right? We have a person that is experiencing harm from gambling, and one of his triggers is when he goes to Sainsbury's and puts his change from his Pringles jar into the actual change machine that actually get those bills out. And it's that hearing of the coins going in, it's that paper coming out of the actual machine and handing it someone to get bills back, and it triggers him immediately. And so it's just understanding those things. Hey guys, it's okay to have a tombola. It's okay to do the national lottery, but having and understanding the awarenesses of that harm is the only biggest thing we can do.
Yeah, I think that would be my summary of what we've heard today is building awareness and having balance between family, work, hobbies, whatever it might be, or indeed gambling. I'm very fortunate. My kids, I was never a computer gamer, and my kids don't really do computer games other than a bit of Minecraft occasionally. They're not really gamers per se, so I haven't been exposed to that. So that's quite enlightening. And what you say about things like the Taylor Swift concert and the absolute targeting of young people and the free betting early on to try and build the dopamine hits so that when they do grow old enough, that's all really very subtle but very clever but very dangerous. So I think one for us all to be aware of. So in some, I'm really sorry we didn't get to hear from Lynn today, but for whatever reason I couldn't. It was the same invite, but I just couldn't figure out how to get her on as a presenter as well. But on behalf of everyone who's here, and as I said at the start, this webinar is recorded and will be next week. We'll post this along with the other webinars on the website and on our own website, so people can have access to it and share it with people that they may know or feel will benefit, including links to the various software. So the ACT app is a good one, and that video that we didn't hear, unfortunately, but we can get the YouTube link to that probably and get that as well. So Jamie, thank you very much for your time. For Lynn, who I know has done all the prep as well, but hasn't been able to get on screen. I'm a bit gutted about that, and that's my technical inability, I'm afraid. So I apologise. But for those who have been with us today, I really thank you for giving us your time. Jamie, for your time and effort today and enthusiasm for this topic, and really just so we can all take away some top tips from today to support ourselves, our families, and all those that we care for in our various services. So once again, thank you. And for those who are planning to join tomorrow, we're doing basically how to avoid stress and burnout tomorrow. No, Friday. Excuse me. How to avoid stress and burnout, which kind of concludes the webinars this week. Hopefully you can join us then. But until then, thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Be well.